own observations of what transpired in Parliament, think the strategy of the minority was clear, and maybe they didn't expect Honorable Ayariga to be to object on so many occasions, and then the vetting in general. What are your observations first?
So first of all, my observation for yesterday's vetting was that Honorable Mahama Ayariga's performance on the committee was stellar. I mean, he put it beyond doubt that whatever cases had been extended to the minority leader in previous sittings of the appointments committee could not mature as a right. And that's very important for the rule of law. That's important for constitutionalism. And that's important for the work of the committee. That no matter the number of times cases and privileges are extended to a member of Parliament on the appointments committee, that courtesy or right cannot, by any stretch of imagination, be extended to be a right. And I applaud him for that fundamental statement of law and principle. And I say that for the first time, I actually got up, jumped, and clapped for Ayariga. Secondly, what was the minority seeking to achieve? So what was the purpose? What was their strategy? To my mind, their strategy was to bring through the back door a matter they had sent through the front door to the speaker, which matter was rejected as inadmissible. And I'm talking about the motion they filed. Thirdly, the minority's position is so wrong that it is actually nauseating. The Appointments Committee of Parliament, in recent memory, has vetted and approved about 4 or 5 chief justices of the Republic of Ghana under the Fourth Republic. Theodora Wood was vetted and approved by Parliament, appointed by Akufo. Sophia Akufu, vetted and approved by Parliament, appointed by Nana Akufo-Addo. Ani Yeboah, vetted and approved by Parliament, appointed by Nana Akufo-Addo. Gertrude Tokono, vetted and approved by Parliament, appointed by Nana Akufo-Addo. In all these instances, the MPP was the majority caucus. The NDC was the minority caucus. Is the minority telling us that the minority caucus then did not have issues with the nomination of the president under Article 1441 of the Constitution? But true to their duty as members of Parliament and privileged to serve on the Appointments Committee, sat through the committees and diligently asked their questions. And where they were satisfied, they showed their satisfaction. Where they were not, they also indicated their dissatisfaction with the answers. But they never walked out on the performance of a national duty like the vetting and approval of a Chief Justice.
So let's start first with you saying that Honorable Mahama Ayariga's performance was stellar. You said he established beyond doubt that whatever cases extended to the minority leader could not have matured as a right. But he also makes the point that it's not the first time people have used the platform of the Appointments Committee to make a statement.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that does not actually make it a right for people to use the platform to make a statement. That's what we are saying. That's what Mama Ayariga said, and that's what I'm saying. And that's what I believe is a fundamental rule of parliamentary practice, that cases do not mature into rights.
And then you also say that you were not clear on the strategy of the minority.
Yes. So what were they seeking to achieve? Because their strategy was captured in the motion they filed in Parliament through the Clerk of Parliament, urging upon the Speaker to admit it and put it on the order paper for debate. The Speaker refused to admit the motion on the grounds that what was contained in the motion was not sufficient grounds to prevent Parliament from carrying out its functions under the Constitution of Ghana. So that was the strategy. So they wanted to stay the process, to hold onto the process and ensure that the vetting did not occur. Appearing at the committee is what are now discussed. What were they seeking to achieve? If they accepted the decision of the Speaker in good faith and appeared before the committee, they wouldn't be seeking to raise the issues that had been captured in their motion and which issues were rejected as inadmissible. So that's where the confusion comes. So having appeared on the committee, I thought they would have sat through. And yes, well, in performance and obedience to the Constitution, we come for you to vet, for all of us to vet, to satisfy the constitutional provision, Article 1441, which requires that the President can only appoint these nominated Chief Justice with prior approval of Parliament. And as Parliament, we are coming to see whether the nominee meets the standard which is required of Chief Justices: moral turpitude, integrity, and all that, to be able to be appointed onto the Supreme Court as a Chief Justice.
You spent 4 terms in Parliament. So this is a minority leader with 87 members of Parliament. Raises an opposition to a vetting process on the floor, fails. Now the vetting is going ahead. What do you think would have been a better strategy?
Oh, a better strategy. If I were, and I can't be in the minority, if I were in Parliament, I would definitely be in the majority. But if NDC were in the minority, I would advise that we go and sit down and ask our questions. You see, the program was broadcast live. It was not only the questions that the minority was asking that will inform the public on their preparedness as members of Parliament to do their duty with impartiality, but also their demeanor will go to establish whether they are a serious caucus or not. So I would have said, look, let's go. Because sometimes the people don't even they don't listen to the questions we ask. They just want to see whether we are serious as members of Parliament, whether they can repose their confidence in us, whether even though we are a minority, we can ask critical questions. We can conduct ourselves in such a way that they can at least have that confidence that in the distant future, if they hand over power to us, we will manage it responsibly. I would have advised them to go.
I see. And you said their position was so wrong, it was so nauseating. Which position?
opposition to go start impugning the integrity of the Chief Justice nominee because they said he's a disputed nominee. How can he be a disputed nominee? Who has disputed his nomination? The former Chief Justice who is gone, and to all intents and purposes, the matter of the former Chief Justice is concluded and gone. Any lawyer of his sort, after reading Article 146 of the Constitution, will be left in no doubt that there is no appeal flowing out of the process under Article 146 of the Constitution. So, why? Why will a member of parliament raise a matter about a nomination and call it a disputed nomination of a person in the nature of a former Chief Justice who has been removed out of office for stated misbehavior, to give that removal the color of, if you want, illegality, and uphold the challenge of the removed Chief Justice in Parliament by calling a nominee a disputed nominee. I mean, how? How? I mean, you see, even Parliament itself has a language, and the Parliament urges parliamentarians to use decorous language. Decorous language. So you don't sit in Parliament thinking that you have the right, because of your privileged position, to attack the integrity of people. You don't do that.
I see. And finally, let me, on this matter, let me ask you about what you feel about the performance of the nominee himself when it came to responding to the questions that was raised. What do you think?
The nominee has risen through the mill. The nominee, actually, but for Article 144, Parliament should have just sat down, meet in the committee, ask him a few questions, and pass him. Ask me why.
Parliament...
The nominee is the acting Chief Justice.
Okay.
And it's the acting Chief Justice, not by the pleasure of the President or anybody. It is the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, that has constituted Justice Bafuboni into an acting Chief Justice. He is a constitutional acting Chief Justice. That's number one. So what the President is seeking to do is to give validity to the presumption of the Constitution that the next most senior justice of the Superior Court of Judicature is otherwise fit and qualified to be the substantive Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana. That's what the President is seeking to do. Secondly, this is a Chief Justice who started his journey on the bench at the Circuit Court, worked through the mill to the Supreme Court, was there almost for 9 years before Tokonu came to the Supreme Court. That's the Chief Justice we're talking about. This is a Chief Justice that in the Second Court, in the High Court, in the Court of Appeal, at the Supreme Court, has not given any decision that has embroiled him in controversy. So, stated in another way, he's been so clear with his understanding of the law and the application of the law that his judgments and decisions have not attracted adverse commentary from the public. So why do you think that he is otherwise not qualified or fit to be the Chief Justice? So his performance was as expected.
And this morning we're having a discussion on the matter of the rice glut. In fact, as we speak, yesterday, there was even a small demonstration among others on this issue. Alhaji, how bad is the situation?
Which one?
The rice glut up north.
So, yes, even this morning I was just talking on the rice association of rice producers and processors. And I said, we need to look at the issue from a standpoint of 3 levels. What do we do immediately? What do we do immediately? Because farming is a risk. And the uncertainty characterizing the whole activity requires that a situation like this will need government intervention. Because you see, the farmers went for their own resources, whether through the banks or other financial institutions or their utilization of their own resources, to cultivate to help feed the nation. Now, they have been blessed with a good harvest. If their produce are not bought, they will lose. They will lose the produce. When they lose the capital. And when they lose the capital, they can't go back to farming. And this is a risk that is associated with farming as an activity. So, and when they don't farm, or if they don't farm next year, we will have problems with food and feeding ourselves. And if we have problems in feeding ourselves, we will use our hard-earned currency to import food to feed the people of Ghana. So it is not in the interest of government, nor the people of this country, that farmers will be hard done by the policies of government. So the policy of government must be and ought to be to intervene in this matter through what we call agricultural support, to take off all the surplus from the market and constitute rice millers to mill the rice. And then government institutions will be mandated to purchase their rice from locally produced rice. That is the exercise of an eminent domain, and that is what the president can do and should do that. And I'm happy that the president has already given a directive that only local rice be used in feeding the senior high schools and other government institutions. That's a step in the right direction. Government has also earmarked 100 million. I'm not so much enthused with the 100 million because I've served in government and I know what it means. Because government cannot spend out of budget. Last year's budget will run out on December 31st. Now, last year, we didn't know there would be a drought. So, unless there's money in the contingency fund, I wonder where the 100 million will come from. So, that is a problem. So, that is a statement of intent, to the best of my knowledge, that government intends to spend 100 million Ghana cedis of its resources to purchase rice. Now, but that will take time. But there are other institutions. For instance, the Exim Bank. For instance, the Agri Development Bank. For instance, the Commercial Bank. The National Investment Bank. These are state banks. We are facing an existential threat to our farmers. Is it my understanding that these 4 banks that I've mentioned cannot aggregate resources to help buy off the grain from the farmers? Is that my understanding? At concessionary rates. Because this will be a national duty. This is a national assignment. Or is it my understanding that the Bank of Ghana cannot intervene to help buy the grains and ensure that after the farmers have bought the grains and the government buys, the money will be returned to coffers, to the Bank of Ghana? Is it something that is impossible to do? So we are looking at all the options. And I think that this is the time for agricultural support of a substantive nature be introduced to assist farmers to mitigate the present risk that they are facing. And present risk is the low prices and the post-harvest losses that will come by reason of the glut.
An interesting thing about the many discussions I've had with you is that rice is one food that can be stored for a number of years. For many
But so
years.
yesterday, Tana, and let me thank you so very much. Your station, I've spoken a lot on your station about the benefits of farming and actually what we can do with our rice. And I thank you so very much. But I tell you, yesterday I was having a discussion with a very important person who wanted to source Ghana rice. And you know, the first thing he talked about is quality. I said, what do you mean by quality? What is your definition of quality? He said, oh, the imported rice is different from the Ghana rice. I said, yes, but the imported rice has been stored for between 5 and 10 years before they are brought here. Because the countries where they come from, they also are interested in ensuring their food sovereignty, food security. So they will not farm and immediately let their farm produce leave their country. It is only when they are guaranteed that they have enough reserves that they allow for the export of the surplus grains. So, and this surplus, they won't bring you the freshly cultivated rice. They will send to you what they have been storing for a long time. Against what we produce in Ghana, which moves from the farm gate onto your kitchen table. So, if you talk about quality, what is your definition of quality? Eating fresh rice or eating stored rice, which has been in the silos for up to 10 years. He was confused. He couldn't answer me. So there are trade-offs. There are definitely trade-offs. So people are suffering from diabetes because they eat polished rice, which has been stored for a very long time, which when you eat, your stomach bloats and you have gases. Against rice that is produced just this year, if you consume, you will feel no after consumption symptoms. Which one will you go for? So it's a trade-off. And I think that Ghana rice is the rice we must go for.
I see. We wait to see how this matter will be addressed, but interesting proposals from you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Alhaji Inusa Fuseini, of course, we've spoken many times on matters of rice and of the production of rice, the production of rice specifically. It's been something we've spoken about on many occasions. Like I said, we'll be turning to that discussion shortly. After